Hi, Lyssa.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. So this interview is for Lean and Agile, 100 women, the stories of 100 women we are bringing to the community. And we are more than honored and delighted to bring you. So presenting Lyssa Adkins, and a pleasure to bring you in.
Thank you.
And to kind of, have you share your story with the community at large. And this will be one powerful and a very impactful interview.
Thank you. Thank you. And I can't wait to read the other 99 stories and many more beyond that.
Yes.
Of all of us women together in the Lean and Agile communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we absolutely plan to bring many more interviews. So, stay tuned for that. But for now, it's Lyssa Adkins' story. So tell us, Lyssa, what brought you into the Lean and Agile space, and why did you stick to it?
What brought me into the Lean and Agile space was an accident. I thought I was going to go work at a credit card company and be another project manager, which I had been in my career, progressively more and more difficult project management projects, on and on. And we get there and they're using this thing called Agile, and my friend Andy says to me, we're doing Scrum. He says, you're going to be the Scrum master.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa, that doesn't sound good. But it actually turned out so wonderful, because just within the first month, I had a mentor helping me make sure this could happen. Make sure I didn't inflict my help on the team. And when I did not inflict my help, in the first month, I could see that they were able to figure out what to do on their own. They were completely resourceful, absolutely creative. And within that first month, we produced something real that went out into production. And the consumers got to benefit from it. And I thought, wow, here I was thinking that I had to organize people and somehow, tell them what to do, or at least get them in meetings where they could talk to each other. And I just found out that there was a whole other way of working. And then that started the identity crisis that went on for quite a while, a few years. And the same mentor, his name was Mike Visdos, he said, as you are finding the things that are no longer helpful, don't rush to fill the time with whatever you can grab. Instead, wait and watch and see what's really needed. And it was then that I saw that the things the team needed were not around organization, and they weren't even around intent and scope, because the business people were now integrated in the team. What the team needed was someone to help them have higher quality conversations, make clearer and cleaner decisions, help them bounce back when the organization threw some curveball at them, which does happen quite frequently. And so I needed to find new skills to deal with those. And that's when another friend of mine, Michael Spade, said, go to get professional coaching skills, and I did. And then I also got facilitation skills and started bringing those in. Yeah.
That's awesome. And this happening by an accident is still interesting, right? And you went on to write a book in 2010, Coaching Agile Teams, which of course, became one of the, best read book and best-selling book.
And it still is, surprisingly enough.
I'm sure, yeah. And many of us read that and in fact learned a lot, from it.
Thanks.
But I'm sure writing it was not as easy, especially in 2010 when, the resources were, limited. And I think even the experiences to share were limited. So tell us a little bit about what that experience was like writing that book and what challenges you faced.
The main thing about writing the book was that I had no intention of writing a book. I was speaking at my first Scrum gathering, and I was speaking on this topic of the road from project manager to agile coach. Basically talking about my own identity crisis, and here's what I have found is helpful for those of us coming from this project management world. And it was at that time that Mike Cohn, who has written many books in the Agile world and is very well known, he has a book series at Addison Wesley. He came to me and he said, I want you to write a book for my book series. I just read your blog, and that's exactly the sort of thing that we need, is to help understand this Scrum Master role, understand Agile coaching more broadly. And he said, I think you can do it. And I said, no, not me. And he's a crafty guy though. He said, just let the publisher send you the book proposal format.
Just getting you into it.
Just let him say, oh sure, Mike, he can send that. And so I read it over, and somehow it got downloaded in my head. And over the next 6 months, people would say to me things like, wow, that's really good, you should write that down. And so I just kept getting all these hints, and I started waking up with parts of the structure of the book and just wrote it down in that format. And lo and behold, about 6 months later, I actually had the proposal complete. And I thought, well, I guess maybe I am the one that's supposed to write this book. Even though I felt like, compared to other Agile coaches, I had far less on-the-ground experience with Agile. I had only been an Agile coach at that point for like 2 years or something. And mostly in one client. But I had been bringing in professional coaching and facilitation, like all the things that we needed that had nothing to do with Agile. And so I had been immersing in that quite a bit. Yeah, and so I wrote that book, and the biggest thing I had to do in the year I wrote that book was to keep my mind out of the process. And I had a really great coach that year, Sandra Enoch, and she would come up with all kinds of ways to help me stay in the flow of what I was here to do, and just have this belief that for whatever reason, I'm the one that this book is gonna, come through, and so I just need to stay out of its way. There were all kinds of times when I doubted myself. There were all kinds of times when I thought, well, I'm not good enough, or why me? Other people have more experience, or oh my gosh, am I really going to try to define Agile coaching? I had all of those thoughts. And it was my coach, and also my husband John, and my daughter Kaylee, who the two of them were just like, oh yeah, you're going to write a book? Sure, of course you can do that. I mean, they were just so nonchalant about the whole thing, and very supportive in that year that I wrote it.
No, that's awesome. And those are some of the self-constraints or internalized constraints that you had, that am I the one? And do I have the expertise and the experience to write it? And so how did the challenge really become worse when you were possibly one of the very few coaches, women coaches in the industry back then? What was it like?
I don't remember a moment of feeling external constraints on me. I know a lot of women do and have encountered that, and I think of the women who were my role models at that time. Deborah Preuss is one of them, and I think that she was one woman in 12 men. Like, she was like the 13th person. 12 Agile coaches are all men, and her that were brought into this client. So she was my first exposure to a woman as an Agile coach. But all of us were, there were a lot of women at that time becoming Agile coaches in this credit card company. And I wonder if I just don't look for those constraints, so I don't let them affect me. The other thing is that I have a whole lot of masculine energy. I have a lot of drive. I have a lot of I'm here to do something, and that was definitely in play with this book, and with the aftermath of the first years of with a business partner establishing Agile Coaching Institute. So maybe they existed and I ignored them, or maybe for some whatever reason I didn't encounter the blockers that I hear a lot of women talk about encountering.
And that masculine energy might not come natural to many women. Yeah,
well, it's not really natural to me, it turns out. I mean, I can put it on very easily, but I just realized that it absolutely was not natural to me. And as we continue to grow Agile Coaching Institute, the people who were helping me grow it, and we were partnering together, were very careful to say, you can let that go now. You're not a project manager anymore. You're not telling people what to do. You don't have to be the velvet fist and the iron glove. You can let that go and be yourself. And that's when I started really getting into, what is my feminine essence? And how can I bring that into my work? And that's when I started listening a lot more. I guess I had started it back in writing the book, actually, because listening a lot more to what is wanting to happen and seeing if I could just follow that versus trying to make anything happen. I think there's a certain inner wisdom that probably everyone has, but as a female creature, I feel it very clearly.
More intuitive.
That inner wisdom, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very powerful. So, Lyssa, you have trained thousands of coaches as a coach of coaches through Agile Coaching Institute and beyond. What was the experience like encountering so many diverse personalities, challenges, and cultures and backgrounds, right? What were some of the highlights? And if you can really touch on the vulnerabilities that you came across, right? And can you share about that, please?
Oh, so when I think about all the different cultures and the types of people we came across, and the vulnerabilities that arose from that, there's one kind of vignette that I think of really clearly. We were going to teach the Coaching Agile Teams courses in China, and we consulted a friend of ours in the Scrum community who'd been teaching in China for a long time, and he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you asked me." He said, so there's a bunch of things you all do that you really shouldn't do in China. He said, first of all, this hand raise thing where you get people to give you your attention, don't do that, because people are taught in China to only raise their hand like this, even when they have to go to the bathroom in school, like just a tiny little bit, and it's kind of scritched down, and don't do this and don't do that. Gave us a bunch of advice, and it was Michael Spade and I teaching those courses, and I remember our conversation where we said, if we are going to walk the talk of professional coaching being an underpinning of Agile coaching, then what we would really do is go in there and be 100% of ourselves and be ready to negotiate the difference. And so that's what we did. We walked into the first classroom in China. We did everything like we normally did. They followed us with the hand raised, no problem.
With no challenge.
No challenge whatsoever. And when we got to consciously designing our training alliance, we said to them, we are undoubtedly going to do something that is, going to be unintentionally offensive to you. And here's what we'd rather do. We'd rather be 100% ourselves and help, because that will help us find the boundary at where we really are shutting down connection with you. And we don't want to go that far. We don't want to shut down connection with you by any means. But if we hold ourselves back here, there might be all this territory that we could explore together that we would never know, right? Yeah. And so that's what professional coaches do. They come in and they talk about creating intentional relationship instead of making a bunch of assumptions and posturing around those assumptions. And so I think that is a way of being vulnerable all the time. I actually don't. If I ever felt vulnerable, a bunch of times, but I don't think of it as any sort of unusual feeling. Because I'm just always ready to negotiate the difference.
So bring in your 100% and be ready to negotiate any differeces or gaps if they arise.
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful message, because I think most of us very unconsciously kind of reconfigure our behavior or expectations in anticipation to something that might offend the other party or please the other party. So that's a great message, Lyssa. Thank you for sharing that.
You're making me realize there's been a change to this over time. So in the last year or so, I've gotten much more interested in being a party to this sort of spacious fire of creativity with other people.
Fire of creativity.
The spacious fire of creativity. And for that to happen, I need to be asserting far less and receiving far more. And so I've actually gone through a pretty big shift in the last year or so, and I think this has to do with why I really want to amplify women's voices in Agile, is that it's not so much being pulled back as wanting something else more. So there are situations in which I might have an idea, but I'm just going to decide to let the group, move in their own direction, because I'd rather find out what's going to happen in this spacious fire of creativity than asserting my idea. And so I want to be in more spaces like that, more spaces where things can emerge quite beautifully.
And co-create.
Yeah, and genuinely co-create. Yeah. And so for that to happen, there's a lot that I am aware of all the time in myself and how I'm showing up. And and so it's still a process.
Yeah, I'm sure it's an ever evolving and an ongoing process. So Lyssa, you've been involved in 10 Women Strong. And you've clearly explicitly stated that will be your focus, to bring women into the spaces that they can find themselves. What do you think are the cornerstones of women in Lean and Agile spaces? What are some of the things that they can just hold on to, the values and the strengths?
I think the biggest thing we have going for us in Lean and Agile, at least Agile for sure, is that the values themselves are feminine values. Individuals
Totally
and interactions over processes and tools, working product over comprehensive documentation, responding to change over following a plan, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. All of these are very naturally feminine.
Women,
yes, absolutely. So we have that going for us, and I would say that is the cornerstone to continue to rely on, because although we had some very enlightened men create that Agile manifesto, they are not the ones that are going to be able to live into the full promise of those statements. Is that true? I'm not sure what I just said is true. But I'll tell you that as a woman, I resonate with those very strongly.
And you believe that they form the cornerstone, so regardless of who you are, those four values still form the pillars.
Yeah, they do. They do. And so I feel like as women, we have everything going for us in the Agile community. We have those Agile manifesto values. Each of the Agile frameworks has values underneath them that are very human and enlivening and creative. And those are some of the things that are innately feminine.
And something that we need to hold on to.
Yeah, well, and
very
I think
closely.
the world wants us to bring it.
Yeah.
At this point, like we've had enough of the directionality of the masculine, and it's been wonderful, and it needs to come into more balance with the circular motion of the feminine.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, having said that, Lyssa, can you share with us where this community at large and this evolution of Lean and Agile and human behavior and the organizational culture and the mindset, where is it evolving into? Where is the direction going?
I see all the things that you just mentioned, that whole list. I see them as an emergent response to complexity. That as the world became more complex and it was not sufficient for one person to make a decision and then just tell everyone else what to do, that those were responses to it. Scrum is a beautiful response to the increase of complexity. So I think that where we're headed is to work more hand in hand with complexity and change. And I think the world will continue to get more complex. If our scientists are to be believed, and I happen to believe them, we are going to start to see climate damage events that are going to kill 1 million people at a time in the next 10 years. So our terrain is going to change just at an unbelievable rate in unbelievable ways. I think we have something so special with our Agile and Lean practices, principles, and values
Yeah.
that can help us come together. I mean, we know how to collaborate. We know how to bring in different opinions and yet still create something in a short period of time, get some rubber on the road. I think that's going to be so crucial when our terrain changes that much, when our everyday world gets upended in ways that we never wanted.
Yeah, and bringing in the next generation along.
Well, I think the next generation is actually going to teach us quite a
I
lot.
believe it. Yes.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a very powerful message,
Mhm.
right? You know, it's not just for IT or, you know, the product or
Mm.
delivery, service delivery
Mhm.
oriented organization, but it is for world at large. So
Yeah.
that really matters.
Yeah, I mean, the anxiety of it is so overwhelming to me. And yet, I know that we have what we need in this community to meet it.
We are definitely, you know, self-sufficient. We just
Mhm.
have to mean it and realize it
Yeah.
and value it. And to wrap up, Lyssa, I wanted to know, so this is a Lean and Agile 100 Women Initiative.
Mhm.
We are bringing in tens of hundreds of, you know, stories
Mhm.
going forward
Mhm.
to the community with the hope that we don't have to all, you know, reinvent the wheel or go through the
Yeah.
same challenges or hassles that
Mhm.
other women, you know, had to. We want to kind of leverage each other's experiences. How does this resonate with you?
Well, I think we women need to tell our stories. And that's the part that resonates so strongly with me. I was just having a conversation earlier today when I said, you know, if we women get together and share our stories about our experiences, just in like, let's say this one little corner of the Agile world,
Yeah.
then such air and light and openness would come into that we would be so strong together.
Absolutely.
We would be so strong together. And I think we could enrich each other in so many ways that we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah.
And it starts with us telling our stories. It starts with us telling the stories of the things that we think we're the only ones to have ever experienced.
Yes.
And then when we tell our story, we find out, oh, she experienced that, and and this is how it's connected.
Yes.
So I so champion this LIA100 and what you all are doing here. The more stories we can tell, the easier we can find each other.
Yep. Absolutely. So thank you for being the champion. And if there's one, you know, last message that you would like to share with the community, with, you know, women in Lean and Agile, what would that be?
You are enough. More than enough is on the way. You don't have to go out and get the next certification or get the next
Love that.
credential or get the next mentor or the next job. You are enough. That's really it.
Just awesome. Thank you so much, Lyssa.
You bet.